let's talk about brutes. In this series, my deep dive series, we're going to talk about individual units and when they're good, when to take them, how to use them, tips and tricks and such, regardless of points. Right now, I think that brutes are overcosted, but in a few months they might be undercosted. So we're going to see. Let's go. But first, of course, we have to thank all my patrons. The best way to support the channel is through Patreon. Thanks to Iberian for supplying art and other stuff for the channel. Big fan. And Baron of Dice. If you're going to buy dice, you might as well buy them through Baron of Dice. Look how sick those greenskin, or those dice are. And if you're going to buy them from Baron of Dice, use code MDG at checkout. So, brutes. Brutes are 15 wounds on a 3-up save with maybe a 6-up ward if you're taking Weird Fist. They're pretty tanky. And that's with only 5. When we talk about brutes here, we're only going to talk about 5 brutes. And remember, if you reinforce them, we're doubling. So it's 30 wounds on a 3-up save. That's a lot of wounds. Eugenio, which is the ability that brutes have on their war scroll. Enemy models with a health characteristic of 1 or 2 cannot contest objectives while they're wholly within combat range with this unit. Which means, if you take a single brute and you put them... Brutes have a 40mm base. If you stick one brute on the 40mm base on an objective, it means that that brute is zoning out that entire objective, and models with 1 or 2 health cannot contest. So this might be the strongest control ability in the game. I don't think that control is that important. A lot of the time, it's just like who won the fight that wins objectives, right? But still, it is maybe the strongest one in the game. It's like, oh, cool, I get +2 control. Well, you can't contest it, though, so it doesn't matter. It's 0. Right? It doesn't matter. Your 1 or 2 dudes, which is a lot of dudes, just have 0 control. So, sorry. It's a very strong ability. They have anti-infantry +1 rend in their profile, right? They're brute weapons. So 4 of the brutes get brute weapons, and 1 gets a choppa, a gore choppa. The gore choppa has 1 more rend and 1 more damage. The rest of it's the same. So when you throw your dice, right, if you wanted to use like 2 different colors, so it's like 4 times 3 is 12, and then 3, and you use 2 different colors, you can get all the way to the saves before you have your opponent differentiate. And if you're fighting infantry, they're still both at 2 rend, right? So, they throw a pretty high volume of dice for what they are. And they have anti-infantry. So it makes a brick of 10. You can't have 20. Oops. It makes a group of 10 in the center extra scary. They're going to zone out, like their anti-infantry in their control with you messing. They're anti-infantry +1 rend. So they're kind of scary. They love all-out attack with their 4-up to hit and high volume of dice, right? You're going to get... they attack with 3 dice minimum, so 5 of them throw 15 dice with 4s to hit. So if you can get that to 3s to hit, that's pretty good. They have good wound rolls, right? They're 3s to wound, so changing this from 4s and 3s to 3s and 3s can be quite good. And priority target, like going to 3s and 2s is scary, right? Especially with that anti-infantry. 3-up save, 4-inch move, 3 health, right? 1 control. And also don't forget too that Iron Jaws have other ways of getting even more attacks with the Megaboss or the Wah or other, there's other ways of getting even more attacks. So all-out attack is even better the more attacks that you have. They're slow with a 4-inch move, so anything that can get them moving really helps. Mighty Destroyers, of course. Redeploy, especially with an eye for the fight, which is one of our heroic traits. Like counter-charging, teleporting, anything that can help your brutes move is helpful for slow brutes, right? The Megaboss buff is not as good as you would think. So if you're looking for something to buff brutes, I think that like a first choice or like an obvious first thing that you would look at would be the Megaboss, because he has 2 abilities where he gives brutes more attacks, right? One is in your hero phase. And this one's the better one. So you pick a friendly brute unit that's wholly within 12 of the Megaboss. So the Megaboss can be comfortably behind the group of brutes. And then on a 2-up, right? Which is a very easy roll to make. You add 1 to the attack characteristic of the Brute's melee weapons until the start of your next turn. So for me, this ability on the Megaboss is ticking a lot of boxes, right? It's the Foot Hero can be safely behind enemy lines. It's a 2-up, which, you know, it's still a roll, but it is a 2-up, and it is adding attacks, which is a good buff to have. So, you know, it's reliable. You can keep your guys safe. But this other ability, this reaction, you declare a fight ability for the unit. So the Megaboss has to be in combat with his 3-up save and his 8 wounds, right? Like, he's not super tanky by any means. He can have a 6-up ward on top of this in a couple different ways, so that's a little bit nice. But so you have to get the Megaboss into the fight, and then you need a 3-up, which is less reliable now, so you're putting your Megaboss at a greater risk. And then you can just fail the roll. It adds another 1 attack characteristic, but it's only for the rest of the turn. So it doesn't carry over until the next turn, right? The Get Stuck In Lads, the first Megaboss ability, does. It lasts until the start of your next turn. But then this other ability, which again, you have to be in combat, and it has to be a 3-up, and the ability only lasts until the end of the turn. So this is going to be better later when the Megaboss is actually fighting. But why is the Megaboss getting into the fight? He doesn't do a ton of damage, right? Like, his rend is not very high, and he's got 4s to hit, and you don't want to all-out attack him. On average, only 4 dice are getting through, right? And then with a wound roll, let's say that even 4 get through, your opponent has to make 4 saves at 1 rend. Like, it's not going to be a ton of damage. It's going to be like 4 damage, right? So you're putting the Megaboss at risk to maybe not even buff and maybe not do a lot of damage. So this second one is not that great. So really what we're looking at is +1 attacks. But +1 attacks is not as much damage compared to Zogrokk and War Chanter. I'll show you the math here in a second. But, you know, again, it's like, I could see, like, if the price was right, if the points were right, if it fit in the list, I could see doing like Zogrokk, War Chanter, Megaboss in like a brute spam list if you wanted to take a lot of them. Or if you wanted to have like 2 groups of 10 march up the center of the battlefield, I could see arguing for a Megaboss as like your 3rd hero, right? But I'll show you the math here in a minute. But generally speaking, right, you want something to fight over the center objectives against infantry. Brutes are phenomenal at that, right? They're going to zone them out with Umessin, and they have they're 2 rend against infantry. They're scary. You want something that's going to sit at home and hold home objectives. You want to throw 5 brutes on a home objective against your friend that keeps teleporting BS into your backline and taking your objectives. Brutes are going to sit there and hold it, right? You want something to march up the table and take away objectives from your opponent. You can do that with brutes. They might have to spend a turn running. You might have to throw mighty destroyers at them to get them moving. You might have to hand of Gork them at the beginning of the game to put them in a better position where they can actually get to where they need to be, right? Because they are slow, so they need work if you want to be aggressive with brutes on the other side of the map. But they'll do that. Brutes will charge onto an enemy's objective, and there's so many wounds on a 3-up save that, you know, maybe you'll lose 2 brutes, but because of you messing, they're going to zone out and they're going to take that objective away from your opponent. So that can be pretty strong. Brutes do what they do very well. Anti-infantry with damage and control. Very, very strong. So let's look at some math. So of course these are all for 5 brutes, and if you wanted to do this for 10 brutes, you just double it, right? You double it. They have a champion, right? So it's not quite that, but it's almost quite that. So 5 brutes against a 4-up save are going to be doing about 8.25 damage, which is 4.1 damage per 100 points, which is good. Anything that's in that 4 range, like anything that's more than 4 damage, is a lot of damage. So they definitely provide their value. And this is, of course, when I'm at the time of recording, brutes are 200 points. So if I have a feeling that because Iron Jaws kind of struggle right now, and I think that brutes are going to be one of the units that come down in points. I'm expecting like at least a 10, but probably a 20-point reduction in brutes. So then this number is just going to go up, right? So against a 4-up save, they're dealing pretty good damage. If it's a 5-up save, that's where brutes are tipping over, just 5 brutes, into that range where they're dealing 10 damage. And then versus infantry, they're against a 4-up save is where they're approaching that 10 damage mark. So if you're like a 5-up save infantry and you have 10 wounds, like if you're a unit of Hobgrots, brutes are going to wipe you pretty consistently without any effort, without any resources having to go into them. And this is, again, just 5 brutes. So you can see how 5 brutes are just going to like smash any light infantry. Just absolutely smash them. And even against good infantry, like if we're fighting against like Ardboys with a 3-up save, right? 5 brutes against 10 Ardboys, we're still going to be lifting like 3 or 4 models. So it's quite good, right? That anti-rend throws up our damage. You know, it throws it up more against the lower end, but it's good, right? So because brutes have multiple different ways of adding more and more dice to like attack characteristic, from the Megaboss can do it twice. So the Iron Jaw's Wad does it, right? So brutes could theoretically have, and then I guess with Grunt to Stampede, I guess if they charge with 8 or more, you could have 7 attacks per model. So 5 brutes could be throwing 35 dice. But just keep in mind that for every attack that you add against a 4-up save, you're adding about 2.61 damage, right? You're adding about 2.61 damage. So it's, you know, it's reasonable. It's a reasonable amount. And none of this is with all-out attack, and they love all-out attack. I didn't include it here, but all-out attack bumps up their damage like a fair bit, especially when you're adding on more and more attacks, right? All-out attack is really good on brutes, as we talked about before. So here are some of the heroes. We have the Megaboss, buffing with only +1 attack. If we throw another one on, we're just going to add whatever the number is in here in this add 1 to AC column. We would just add it on to here. So you can see that if we, the Megaboss with only +1 attack, the brutes, 5 brutes again, are going to be dealing about just under 11 damage, which is pretty good. But Bcalm, lads, which is the spell that's coming from the War Chanter, is going to actually add more damage on top, right? And Zogrokk Anvil Smasher adds even more damage. Zogrokk is a better buff piece than the Megaboss if the Megaboss isn't in combat. When the Megaboss gets himself in combat, then he's worse than Zogrokk, but again, the Megaboss has to be in the fight, so he's at risk of dying, and it's also a 3-up. Zogrokk is a 2-up that's rerollable, so quite good, right? And also, the thing with Zogrokk in it as well is that he does mortal wounds, so mortal wounds are sick. So, you know, if you're the better your opponent's saves are, the better that Zogrokk does. As you can see, this little box is highlighted green because this is against like a 3-up save unit using all-out defense, right? Zogrokk is going to be the one that pulls away from the pack against these high saves, right? If against a 4-up save, it's like Zogorokk's dealing a little bit better, but against really bad saves, you can see that Zogrokk has fallen behind, and that adding, because the mortal wounds against bad saves isn't as much value, right? Because a lot of the like brutes have good rend, especially against infantry, like 2 rend against infantry. So as the as your enemy's saves get worse, more attacks get better and mortal wounds get worse, if that makes sense. But I think overall Zogrokk is probably your best buff piece. His buff is like let's just pull it up, because we looked at the brutes, at the brute, right? So we'll just zip our way down to Zogrokk. So Zogrokk, right? You can reroll foraging rolls for this unit while Clonk is on the battlefield. So you have rerolls to your Power of the Great Green God as long as Clonk is alive, and Clonk is going to stay alive as long as Zogrokk stays out of combat, right? If you make an unmodified save roll of a 1, you remove Clonk. So as long as Zogrokk stays out of combat, it's a 2-up with a reroll, right? Because you're going to take the tongs every single time, right? So pick a visible friendly Iron Jaws unit, infantry unit, so our brutes wholly within 12, make a foraging roll, which again we can re-roll of a d6, add 1 to the roll if this unit is armed with the grunted tongues. Oh no, sorry, it's a 3-up. It's not a 4-up. Sorry, it's not a 2-up. It's a 3-up that we can re-roll. So that's pretty reliable, right? 3-up re-roll, pretty reliable, right? 66% of the time, you're gonna just get it without the re-roll, and then, you know, you have a 66% chance and then a 66% chance. So it's a pretty high chance. I'd have to do the math. Which is better, a 3-up reroll or a 2-up? Right? I'd have to do the math. Someone out there do the math. Let me know in the comments below. But Zogrokk, yeah, it's pretty good. And then the Kilobeat. So the Kilobeat is with your priest. This one's a little bit less reliable, depending on how many points you chant and everything, right? But it's something that normally takes a few turns to build up, especially if you want to get more than 8. So, but it synergizes really well with Zogrokk. The only one here that I'd say, like, the worst buff, I think, is the Bcalm lads, because you're going to be casting manifestations anyway, and it doesn't synergize with crit mortals. But the Megaboss, his extra attacks synergize nicely with Zogrokk, which synergizes nicely with Kilobeat. So if you were like, I want to buff brutes, like I want to run like 3 times 10 brutes, and then heroes that just buff them, Zogrokk, I'd say, is your best bet. Kilobeat, I'd say, is your next one, and then the Megaboss on foot. And all 3 of them together, boy, they're scary. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Come join the Discord. Discord's sick. Come talk about brutes. I'd love to hear about it. Until then, like, subscribe. Wow.